S&P 500 hits another high, but what's going on under the hood? Now, we've been looking at this graph all week, and the reason I've been following it is because you asked me to keep showing you this. You are looking at the S&P 500, the amount of percentage of stocks that are above their 50-day divided by the amount of stocks in the NASDAQ above their 50-day in the NDX. And the peaks tend to mark bottoms. And we can see these peaks. And then the rolling over tells us that we're going to have continuation. So we can see the peak right in here that hit on September 1st. And ever since that peak, we can see that this has been working. And this has been working like a charm. It's continuing to fall. And it looks like when it really breaks that zero line is when it kicks in. And it looks like we're setting up to break that zero line. This is super important for us to get. I cannot stress that enough, that it is setting up to actually come in a little bit more. But I wanted to go through this because when we show these kind of oscillators or indicators that I'll either create or that I'll grab, I think it's really important to just kind of follow through and say, okay, well, what's it saying now? And I got asked a lot of comments on this one, and I got asked a lot of questions about it. So let's follow it through. The other that I think is just absolutely glaring, is like somebody likes to say, is below we have the NDFI, and above us we have the NDX. Now, as we can see up here with the NDX, that's in a percentage. So we're going to take that percentage, we're going to convert it to regular, and then drop it back down. So we can see that. And we're going to leave it in line form. Now, what we've been talking about is we need to get above that 50. If we get above the 50, it's like we're setting up to rip. Well, here we are, and we can see this very clearly. Now, I just want to show you this so that you can see the date. It was Wednesday, so you're always a day behind with this for the data. For the data to actually settle, it's usually a day behind. So Wednesday, you got over that 50.49. Now, you could look at it earlier today, of course, but I like waiting, just making sure everything's settled with it, because sometimes it gets a little goofy, but it doesn't really matter. You want to make sure when it's over that it's actually over and you're setting up to push. We talked about this DTL. We talked about the breakout of that DTL. No, it doesn't have to be perfect. You get the trajectory. And now you're breaking back above that 50. I would argue that when you start breaking back above that 50, if you go and take a look at any times in here when it starts to do that, that's where you're good. Now, it's the rolling over that becomes the problem. But the breaking above that 50 line, if we just mark these off, they are significant, just as breaking below the 50 is, of course, also significant. So we're flipping that. What does that mean to you? Why do you care? You care because what it's telling you is, hey, we're actually broadening out. And I think this is super important. I don't think a lot of people think of this market or look at this market and think to themselves that this is actually branching out. But candidly, it is. It's branching out and it's doing a great job of it. So I cannot stress that enough. It's definitely branching out. It's definitely broadening out in the different sectors. And there is no doubt about that. Now, looking at the sectors, when we talk about broadening out, I think it's important to understand what exactly is broadening out and what does it mean. I'm glad you asked. If we take a look here at the sectors that close on Wednesday, so I have 42 sectors in here right now, 44 sectors in here. And why do I care about this and why do you care about it? Because watch the shift that starts to happen. You have that hour to half hour where they just play with retail. They've been doing a great job of it. See what's happening here with retail and how this just kind of drops and then all of a sudden it starts to lift. It's really kind of crazy what they've been doing lately, but they've been doing a great job of it. Now watch what happens as time goes along with the day. Now by 11 o'clock or 10:30, really, you really get a sense here. All of a sudden you have the pot names that are pushing. You have uranium, you have gold, you have crypto, you have the drone names, you have biotech. All of a sudden, it all flipped again. And this is really important to get. You're not seeing the semis lift. I'm not saying that they're not lifting, but they're not in this upper 5 quadrant anymore. It's now the uranium names are back. It's the drone names are back. It's the space phones names are back. It's biotech. It's quantum. It is a very different shift if you look at this. Now, if you went through this earlier today, and it's not really rocket science, guys. Like if you start looking at this stuff and watch how it flips during the past couple of days where the SOX was up here at highs, and now you look at where the SOX is, it's nowhere really to be seen anymore, is it? Why is that? Well, because they rotated out of that. They're rotating into the smaller names, and they're buying these thematic trades. Even if those trades don't have a lot of volume, that's exactly 100% where this is going, and we could see it throughout the day. Now, that's not to say that you cannot make money here on these names. We had a really nice trade in Tesla on both sides of this today, and I want to walk through a couple things here and how you can tell that this really is a top, and I'll walk exactly through why I'm saying this. But if you look at how this played out, we actually bought this swing at 440, and we actually closed it. We actually closed it pre-market and then closed the rest today here. Hold on one sec. whenever we talk about these, if I have the timestamps at my disposal, I'd just rather show at the head of time. So this is, we were up $35 on the swing. Our cost was $440. So at 9:02, we actually started to close. And then by the end of the day, by 9:30, we were short, and I closed the entire day trade in puts. I scaled out of the most during the day, but I held a runner, played around with it a lot all day. It was a very easy short, and I'll show you how you can pick up on this yourself so that you can do it. But I want to show that, and let me show this as well so you can see when we actually execute it before we get into it. I bought a boatload of puts, the 460s, paid 475. We'll know in a minute. I actually got stopped out at a loss of 50 cents on some of those. But, you know, it made sense for me to get involved. And this is the long swing trade, close remainder at 9:36, and you can see that as well. But let's get into what happened here today. And I wanted to say that you're in a trader's market, guys. There's no backstop anymore. So no one's coming to save you. This got really very clear, and I'll show you exactly how you could tell that you were in trouble today. So you have the news, and to me, the news was good. It was higher than expected, but the stock moved a lot. We were actually trading pre-market public with this, and I actually did another long into this, and I'll show you why. I actually, when this bar happened, I bought here and then I traded out of it. And then when it got stopped at break even, I just kicked the rest. But here's the reason why I did this trade and why this made so much sense to me. First and foremost, this bar is your 1 minute algorithmic bar. So as soon as that news hits, all the algos just kick in and they mark off the bar. So everyone's like, you can't trade anymore because of the algos. It's the dumbest thing in the world. All you have to do is just mark off where the algorithmic traders are. That's all you have to do. And then you're like, okay, well, this is where you bought everything. And this is where you said, I'll sell everything, right? And theoretically, they have unlimited funds. So you mark that off. You can see the wick down. Any sharp bounce means that they're down there and they want to buy. So you can see how fast it got down there and then it started to rally. And then all of a sudden we got the reversal. And all you have to do with this stuff, the easiest way to do this is you mark off that bar and you'll see a line here, 50%. And no, it's not a fib. I'll clean off the rest of this so that you can see it's super clear. All you do is put a demarcation line in, right? You're not just looking for fib levels. You're just looking, do I have net sellers or net buyers off that algorithmic bar? What happens here? Net buyers. Your life is great. You're a winner. Everything's good. What happens when the algos flip and all of a sudden they're not net buyers, they're net sellers? What happens to the stock? So you can look at any indicator you want. You can do anything you want. The minute that happens, we're hosed. So you literally have to go, all right, I have to get out of this. You might give it a minute. You might give it a lower low, but you realize that you have to go. Once you broke, that was it. Once you broke the 50%, you couldn't get above it. That was it. First bar down, that was pretty much it. We knew there, okay, let's buy the puts. Bought the puts, came down, got a close over that algorithmic bar. In that close of that algorithmic bar is where I closed a percentage of the puts and then I just put them back on as soon as it flipped back over. It probably cost me 40, 50 cents, but I bought the 460s. You can do the math for yourself on where we scaled out of it. You know, when we were up 100% is when I scaled out of chunks. But then I just had, you know, runners all day and short and stock all day. Very simple trade when it got going. I mean, if you just did something as simplistic as just watch VWAP, you never really had to worry about this. You never made a higher high. This gave you really no concern, except for the end of the day, it did start trying to look like it was going to lift into this, maybe to 450 or pin, and it just never really happened. Now you're just down and you're just getting smoked end of day. So it is what it is, but what does this really mean for you? What do you want to do about it? Well, there's a couple things here. The first thing is, why am I saying that that's it? Well, the very first way to look at this is why I would say that is if I go and take a look at this with the RSI, and I look at the RSI, specifically getting rid of the pre and the post. Here's my higher high, here's my lower high, here's those levels, but there's the break. So I've completely broken below those levels. It is very rare that you're going to break a lower low through this with these kinds of higher highs and have that kind of divergence and not have some kind of retest or backfill. It's pretty rare if you went through history and you looked at them and you see how you have these peaks up here and the peaks are here. Like eventually something just happens. It'll be something that would have happened anyway, but when you say it, you really can't unsee them. I mean, you can even see them here. It might not even be that big of a drop, but something's going to happen to it. It just always does, whether it's a day or whether it's a week. It doesn't really matter. You'll see them over and over again, and it's very hard to miss, right, when you really see them. But you're looking for the negative divergences. That's really the key. Just like the positives. See the positives here on the downside, where this takes out a lower low and it doesn't here. That's a pretty key indicator that you're probably not going to break that level. Same thing on the negative side. I know people are like, well, RSI doesn't work. Okay. But you know, I use it all day long. you should use what you're comfortable with. So we can see how it broke down here, but what else about this would tell me that you put a top in? Well, if you went to something as simplistic as ATR, and whether you have your own ATR settings or you use the standard settings, it doesn't really matter. But if you go to one ATR and you're at a 12 here on the 4 hour, and let's go to the daily because that'll make the math simpler for me. We can speed it along. So you're at an 18 today, right? All right, so I'm at an 18. So we gapped up 470 and we closed at 434. What do you notice about that specific amount of movement? You would argue, right, that you're what? 2x ATR to the downside. Okay, that's number two. Besides the RSI, number two, 2x move to the downside. Number three is that's a black Marbuzu, which is the open was the high, the close was the low. Go look at the percentage chance of that bar when it's at the top of a chart and whether or not that tells you that you're going to have a problem or not. Usually they're marking those levels and they tend to mark areas pretty emphatically. You have to go and find them. They're pretty rare, but they tend to mark an area for a period of time. It doesn't mean you're never going higher, but it does mean you have to work through that to find out where all the sellers are. So besides that, besides the ATR, besides what you're seeing here, that bar in and of itself with this kind of volume, where that volume completely encapsulates any of the buying. And the thing about that volume is it's not high enough to be exhaustive selling. So if that volume was extreme, like ultra extreme, like 2x or 3x, my moving average here, you could say that's exhaustive selling. And exhaustive selling would mean, oh, I don't have to go near it, or I shouldn't go near it right now, right? That is not exhaustive selling. And that is exactly my point. This is day one. Now you get the hopers and the dreamers. Oh, please, baby Jesus, don't break down and go down another level tomorrow, right? We have that whole crew. And right into option day. So what's going to happen there? So they're going to have to see that, and then they're going to get their heads handed to them, and then it'll find a bottom. So the put wall at the time of closing was 430. I think you can see 410 pretty darn quick. I don't see any reason why you can't run through these levels. I thought the number was good. You're at the 12, but this would take us to about the 22. You should use what you're comfortable with. I use a 12, a 22, and a 55. But you're really in, the hot pocket zone here where these guys are just hoping and praying at this point. You can't really look at that and be feeling like, you know what, I'm good here holding this long. I really believe that this is going to go higher. Hopefully you don't look at that and think that, okay, let's just keep rocking and rolling. You know what? Actually, let's watch this play out live. You're going to hold here for now. I'm watching that, but if we break that, we're going to have some issues there. It's going to be a pickle. I think you're going to break. I'm going to go and take a look at this really quickly and see what we can get here. If the 460s are, to me, pretty cheap, I'm going to buy a boatload of the 460s, and I'll know in a minute what I'm doing. I'm going to give it a 1-minute bar. I think that's the way I want to handle it, because if that cracks, if that algo goes away, that's going to be ugly. I bought a bunch at 475. If I flip this, then I'm just going to kick it. But I don't want to try to put them on if it really, really breaks here. If it really cracks and the algo steps away, that's going to get ugly fast. I put it on ahead of time. It's not really working. The algo is kind of holding the level. I'm going to trim half these options. I lost 50 cents. That's the algo. So if it holds there, that's your level. I'm not going to kick the rest yet. You're in a lot of trouble here. 550, trim $6. Puts 950, trimmed up 100%. All right, that's it. I'm out of the rest. Thank you very much. Made 75% on the rest of the puts. That's not good. Tesla's in trouble. That's in a lot of trouble there. You can actually short it and use the top of that bar right there. Look, if it gets over there, you know that you're done. The way that you went through that and the way that you held, that should not be happening. I'm going to trim into that. So let's trim more. And really what we're looking for now is, do we start to come back to that level? Do we break it? How much do you want to hold on to? All right, I'm probably going to go back to this 59. I really don't feel like testing it again, so I'm out of the rest. Thank you very much. So what I'm doing there the entire time is just quantifying my risk. You can see we entered the trade. I cut out a half. I put it back on. And then we're just allowing the trade to work out. We're covering that other trade again. We're allowing it to come back. You could see when I said, oh, it's probably going to get back to that 59 level. And really what I was thinking was, you're coming back to this previous close. That's exactly what it does. It rallies back up here, presents another opportunity. And then you're just using the previous close and watching those people getting stopped out over and over again, which is right here. It's actually a really nice function on here. I didn't create this. Someone else did, but it's a really good function. It'll actually mark off the previous highs and the previous closes for you. And you can just use that functionality with it. But it's very helpful. I find it very helpful anyway. And you can see like here, I'll just mark like yesterday's close, and you can see those levels. And I find it very helpful because just to see where everything is in a snapshot, even yesterday's lows, and then you can see how you're bunking along yesterday's lows, and you can put the pre-market highs and the pre-market lows in it. But it's very helpful. And instead of you going out and creating your own. But the point is, it was just wash, rinse, and repeat all day long. So when you start to see these patterns, you can recognize them, you can profit from them. I go over this again in the community in these videos on purpose because it's not a function of what I think is going to happen. I thought if they had great news, they could take out 500. That's why I bought the stock. That's why I was in at 440. Because I'm like, oh, we're going to kill it. They're going to squeeze the shorts and then womp womp. So I can either lock in what I made, go long and make more money, which is what I chose to do. The other thing I want to say when we're talking about these sectors, like when we're talking about UFO and we're talking about some of these other names, you're going to start seeing these names go a lot higher than most people think they are. The reason for this is you have the majority of money that you've ever had sitting in money market accounts. They're going to lower rates and they're not going to put them in the Mag 7 because everybody is in the Mag 7. Please understand that. Super important to get. We're really going to dive into this going in Saturday's video, so make sure you subscribe and click all notifications because I do put out things during the day as well in the community tab. And you only see community tab if you're there. We're going to get into why NVIDIA acted the way that it did today. It's super important to get this. You're seeing a massive rotation within rotations. And when you understand it, you're going to be able to really take advantage of it. Some of these names, guys, are going to go a lot higher than you think they are. I really can't be any clearer. This ASTS is a great example of this. You had 2 days to read this news and nobody got it until everybody saw it. And then even the research guys were finally coming out and saying, we're thinking between 80 to 120 on the stock price. You're looking at NBIS. You know, this was something that we've been talking about since about $40, $38 we were showing this on this YouTube channel. You're at $1.25. People are not understanding where the money flow is going. It's no different than what you're seeing in the storage names. And we're going to cover how to identify this specifically in Saturday's video. That is it. Have a great night, everybody.